Calling a meeting to order. Wolcott Forest Stewardship Committee meeting on July 12th, June 12th. We have an agenda. Roger sent that a bit ago, a couple days ago. Anybody have anything they want to talk about that's not already on the agenda or might not be already on the agenda? Right. And also there were minutes from the last meeting, which I'll be honest, I've just been scanning in the last couple of minutes. They look good to me. Overall, anybody have any concerns, things they want to add to meeting minutes, or has everybody had enough time to review them? So let's, given that we don't have a whole lot of other things we have to get to, let's maybe take a few minutes and look at this. Does everybody have access to them now?
I've already read them.
You've read them?
Yeah. They're in the folder too, so.
Yeah, okay. On this wave.
Yeah.
Where's what's the source, the original source of it?
The Vermont Mountain Bike Association.
Oh, okay.
So it was drafted for some race that they were sponsoring a couple of years ago, but it touched a lot of the same areas in terms of like assumption of risks and stuff. So the idea was that I just took it and reskinned it. I know it's kind of a dense document. That's one of the reasons why I want to bring it back to discussion. But I also just felt, we were going to go in and out of the woods with power tools and stuff. Maybe we should have something. Linda sent me a file, a waiver over for the softball league, the rec softball league. And it wasn't, it was probably fine for, recreational sport in the park, but really didn't, like, there were, kind of this greater assumption of risk in terms of injury and stuff like that, related to actually doing work assignments. It's probably something that we'll never need, but the idea was like, we really should discuss it if we're going to have people come in and do that level of work. With the medical costs associated with one injury, especially with like lost time from work or, God forbid a death or something like that.
Yes.
It just could destroy the town. But so just, I hate to think about it that way, but I do. Think about it that way.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Maybe this document's too dense for what we need, but because we were kind of launching between sessions,
Mhm.
I think the idea was to just get something out there.
Mhm.
So that, even if people didn't sign it, they could at least see what they're getting, one of those things like it just, shakes people out of like autopilot. And so remember, like, okay, remember this isn't your property. You gotta pay attention about the work we're doing for our own sake and for the sake of the crew.
Yeah.
So, uh, so yeah, I just put that together real quick. I didn't want to go to like the town lawyer or legal team or anything and pay that money necessarily without talking about it with more detail.
Mhm.
But if that's the road that we want to go, that's fine. And if there's language here that just doesn't seem appropriate, we can, shape the document however we choose, because it's undergone any kind of formal legal review in relation to this purpose, so.
We get to sign it twice. Put it up above. There's a line by assumption of risk and then.
Yeah, it's a two-page document, so it's a.
Yeah.
And one is for, one of the signatures is for you, one is for, if it's a parent signing off on a kid. So,
So does that mean anyone under like 18 has to?
anyone under 18, yeah, should have a parent sign the form for sure,
Okay.
just normal.
So sorry, I'm bouncing around in the agenda. I was curious about it because it was attached in the email and Gabe, it looked as though you were still reading the minutes. Let's approve the minutes if depending on how people feel about the minutes, I'm willing to entertain any motion from the floor. Motion to accept the minutes from Donald, seconded by Mike Green. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. And public comment is the next item. I'm guessing this Murph online is this Bradley? Or who's hiding behind the moniker Murph? If you want to say anything, you're welcome to come off mute and chime in. Now it's public comment time. So, and if you can't find the mute button, you're welcome to come in at another time, but not hearing anything, I think we'll move on. Next item is updates from Sinuosity and volunteer trail builders. And I haven't had much contact with Brooke, but it sounds like you've been out there with some folks.
Yep, we hung out with Brooke for a couple hours last night. Pretty much just went as expected. Had 5 of us. No, one went with you, right?
We must have had 5 or 6.
Probably 6 actually. Yeah.
Dick and his buddy.
Yep. Take Brendan. Me,
There's a lady.
brother, Cole, yep, and then can't remember her name, she lives up on Jones Lane. She's been around me before, yeah,
Not Sheila, Deb, or
maybe Deb, yep,
okay.
and then another guy from Elmore actually was friends with a couple of other guys there last night. He came as well, so yeah, I guess there was about 6 of us. And yeah, they had done cutting on the trails that they're gonna be working on going forward. They had blue ribbons marking the trails and for the continuation of the trail. First, we moved lumber up to a couple bridge spots, 3, 4, I think 4 bridge spots. And we moved lumber to those locations. They seemed quite thankful for that. Their crew was still working there when we were there, and they looked psyched.
Nice.
Yeah. Move those heavy timbers up, and so we did that first, and then we went out to the blue flags. We just headed out from the school, and got to the new area, the blue flags they had already cut. And we were just taking that cut brush and moving it farther into the woods, just like they said, just like Brooke was talking about. Yeah, and so took about 2 hours, maybe a little less. Kind of felt like, we got a core group now. I told Brooke, just prompt us for another, if needed. Wednesday night seems to work. I know that's Dave's kind of night too, but that seemed to work for this group. Days. So going forward, see that happening again. And I just told him to get a hold of us or get a hold of me. We've got it.
Yeah, I
Email
don't
check.
have to be the middleman, I just want to make the post.
Yeah.
You guys want to do it, that's.
Yeah, so it seemed to work well to have like a front porch forum post.
Mhm.
And then me reaching out to that group again, because I had personal contacts with 3 of those people, so I was able to reach out to them. So yeah, that just seemed to work well. And then we got a couple more with the front porch post. So yeah.
There was at least one other communication which I forwarded to Gordon. Someone, I forget their name off the top of my head, says that they were interested in helping, they just couldn't be there this week.
Yeah.
Include them on whatever mailing list we're assembling.
Okay.
But for me, in terms of getting the post done, the best rhythm for me is to try to get the post out on the Monday. It didn't work this week because I was just kind of waiting for some correspondence to kind of gel. And there was a lot going on this week to communicate. And then Gordon already did a post on Monday anyway, so it kind of worked out.
I tried to do it on Sunday, but the Sunday.
Yeah, they don't have enough, or a minimum number of posts they hold it the next day. I talked to them about that before.
Okay.
But Monday has worked well, getting the information for Dave, I'll post up. So if we can get on a Monday rhythm, great. If not, if it doesn't happen until Tuesday, it's fine. I'll work with it either way. I just think it gives the 48-hour notice, I think gives people a chance to pivot.
Yeah.
And people are getting used to it now. Like when they email or I ran into someone at the school and they were just like, oh, I wanted to volunteer, but I had to come here because it was the night of the music performance, remember? So there are people that are interested. They're getting used to it now, I think. And that's why I was like, last week I was really like, oh, let's keep the rhythm up. Let's try to get some other work in there. And kind of punt it to this week, and it seems like it worked out. So
Yeah.
I think it's getting to be known that Wednesday night is a work night in the forest. As long as the weather's nice, I think people will keep showing up.
Joe Cotton was there as well. That's right. So was it 7? 7. Yeah. Yeah.
Dave, you had a crew too?
Dave had one person.
And another one.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brooke has also got an excavator over across the bridge on the Elmore West fields over there.
Mhm.
And he started a trail from down just across the bridge up to the field on the right.
Oh, cool.
And he took a walk behind brush cutter and made a trail all the way up around the fields and back again.
Uh-huh.
And then I brush hog over it, so it's 5 feet wide,
Uh-huh.
and now it's growing up again.
Hmm.
But he said that excavator was gonna do one more trail over there somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely part of their plan that they're doing a trail around the field.
There's a walking trail now, but they were gonna do something with the extra.
Okay, cool.
And it needs mowing. I mean, it's already up 8-10 inches high. If
Right.
it doesn't get mowed, it's not a trail anymore. You know?
Yeah, most things once a week or it grows back like to
And
just as if you never even mowed it.
Trees.
At least once a week.
Yeah.
He seemed like August 1st, he's like, yep, that's coming fast. But that's his deadline and sticking to it. I mean, sounds like he's working. It's at 9, it says a lot of days, it's just stays till dark. Himself and his crew, seems like they stay said it could be 5:30, 5:30, and then he just keeps working. So,
Wow.
yeah, they're going for it. And he definitely was like, yeah, August is coming quick. But didn't say they weren't on schedule, so shooting for it. Yeah.
Any chance that either of you guys took any pictures?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Just send them to me when you have a chance.
Yeah.
And I'll post them on the Instagram.
Yeah, cool.
And there's been bikes on the trails over there. They've been on it.
I'm sure.
Right from the start.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It hasn't been me much, but it hasn't been me in the last 6 weeks, but I have ridden my bikes up there. Bike up there. Cool. Okay, so that's Sinuosity. Next one is update from NRLT on the Smith property. I did get an email from Jack. He's not able to make it to our meeting tonight. And I'm just going to pull it up and make sure that I'm completely honest about what he said. There we go. Not much has changed. Executor is working on getting the house room clean. He's also preparing to have the old hunt camp and old boardwalk removed. The transfer of the property must still be approved by the probate court and is unclear how quickly that will proceed. As soon as we hear more, we will get it to you. So, I guess since our last meeting, a few of us took a walk out there, and have a better sense of, what, at least the front end of the property is. In order to make a trail across the property to connect to the town forest, we really kind of have to get onto the neighbor's property, just due to the topography and the swamp and the neighbors. I'm trying to remember. Travis, is it Trevor Corp? Yeah, nice folks, and they understand that they're appreciative of Tony's public mindedness and they like the idea of it being public property, and they're very clear that they bought the place that they bought because they like being out in the woods and not being disturbed, and the idea of having a trail running right through the property is not exciting to them. So that being said, I think we've got plenty we can do with the town forest, and I don't see any need to try and accelerate any activities up in that area. That's my own personal feeling. Again, I'd love to punch a trail, have a simple trail that starts up there and ends up down here. That could be a lot of fun, but we got other fish to fry, so I'm not too worried about it. That's my thinking.
Kate was saying there might be a possibility of a right of way through his parents or his aunt's property because they're the next ones down from Howard Smith.
Well, I do. There was never an official right of way, but if it comes to the logging, that needs to happen or should happen or anything like that, my parents did not give the Florence permission to do that. They approached them probably 25 years ago or something, and at that point my parents weren't interested in it. I mean, they had four young kids running through the yard at all times, and the idea of a logging truck going through was not very appealing. But now my brother lives there, and he does have kids now too, but the time comes in the situations, as far as trails, I don't know, I haven't talked to him about that as far as trail access goes, but for logging access and that sort of thing, I mean, it's not out of the question. I guess we just cross that bridge when get to it. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't own it. It's still owned by my parents, so they would have the official say on any of that. My mother's definitely, she lives right down the driveway, and she's very private, very much like Trevor in that in that respect of, likes her peace and quiet, is used to it, the way things have been since 1979. So, but, yeah. It's kind of, if it's good for the town, something could potentially happen if needed.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I think that, access to the town forest from that side. My focus, as I was saying in the last meeting, my focus is recreation and I love the idea of being able to have kind of a through hike, or the possibility of this sort of destination hike of starting here and getting up to the ponds and stuff like that. I love those ideas. And we've got fish to fry and only so much time to be able to get stuff done. So it's good to know to my way of thinking, it's good to know what possibilities are there, and I'm not anxious to make anything happen in the short term.
Even Jack said that how much is gonna happen until they get the assessment for the property finished, which he said would be like probably the end of July.
And end of July now?
He said July,
July.
but I'm assuming by the end of July. I sort of said.
July 30th.
Anything else on Tony Smith's property?
The executor, George, reached out to my brother, to Cole, about the cabin removal and boardwalk removal. So he's been checking the cabin out. He found the porcupine. It's definitely inhabited. It's a good one. So he's been visiting it and trying to let the porcupine know, things are going to change as a first step. But yeah, it's on his radar, and he has to do a formal quote and all that, what the job would be. And he has the experience of the first one now, and so he has a good idea what it'll take, and he's pretty much, he's penciling it in for probably this summer, fall. I don't know I don't know if there is a hard deadline with that at all, if that has to happen it might have to happen before things change hands. So, but Cole hasn't got a deadline from George at all that I'm aware of. But I would imagine that probably has to happen, at least if the town, the Bourne property had to happen before the town owned it. So could be the same, probably the same.
Makes sense. I mean, I think it was TPL that was setting timelines and deadlines for it, and I think they're for them, they would have a lot of liability exposure for not doing things completely by the book, just because they're a national organization and there's the injury to their reputation would do a lot of damage for them. I don't know if it's the same for, seems like it's a bit of we can be a little more friendly and flexible with things. It's going to be my guess. And at the same time, if it's all done before the town takes ownership of it, I'm sure that's better for everybody.
Yeah. That's what I know at this point, but it's in the works.
Okay, next item is the update on the Westover property. Several of us were just here for a meeting about the Westover property, basically sponsored by Lamont County Planning Commission. But I don't get the sense that we really reached any conclusions. I'm grateful that LCPC is able to help plan these kinds of events and do stuff. So Mike Parody from the select board is real interested in ensuring that that something useful, something good and robust happens with the property. And some of the ideas we discussed were the possibility of moving the public gardens, the community gardens, more onto the property, having pavilions, for public events, possibly having like, campsites. There's some interest in making places available for campers. There was, the question as to whether the Vermont Huts Association would be interested in managing it. I don't know if anybody really took an action item to follow up on that, although I think that would be a good thing since it is Victoria's day job with LCPC to look into that kind of stuff. I may nag her about that a little bit and see if she's willing to chase that one down. The restrictions on the property have to do with, it has to be consistent with its use, that it's being essentially conserved as floodplain. And any kind of construction has to be approved by FEMA. And the idea, so there's these rocky ledges, ridge areas on the property. And I floated the idea that I think Gwen had brought up the idea of lean-tos for camping and campsites. And building them up on those ledges will for sure be out of a flood zone. And it seems like a neat possibility. So that's another thing. There was discussion about the possibility of a frisbee golf course, and the possibility of tying it in. It could be hoops or baskets that are on this part of the Westover parcel, and if we wanted to take a big course, that it could span some area of the other parts of the Westover parcel and get onto the ball field, and maybe even onto the school property or the town forest, adjacent to it. So there's a lot of possibility there if somebody felt inspired to do something like that. Didn't seem to be that anybody in the room was that person to be the golf course architect, but
I know Bradley's interested in it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
He brought it up completely independently a couple weeks ago.
I mean, if from what I've seen of frisbee golf and the people who like to play it, the possibility that you could have 2 or 3 baskets down there and have the whole thing span, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile space to ending up on the school or circulating around in that space seems really intriguing. I think it might make a popular golf course.
Whose idea was it? Was that LCP or okay?
I think I was the person who originally gave voice to it, but Mike already mentioned that he has friends that travel to Rutland, Brattleboro to play frisbee golf. And the people that are into it are very into it.
Just go up to Johnson State College.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot closer.
it's a nice thing for local kids to do, to get together and do something. See,
As long as the discs are not intersecting the paths with bikers on the bike path.
Or houses.
I think that's it. And anything else? So you guys were here for the meeting. What have I missed?
let's talk about the community garden, but kind of got shot down because it's kind of close to the floodplain and very wet in spots. But then Mike was talking about animal grazing and wildflowers and things like that, pollinator plants. Some of the other ideas.
I did talk about, for myself, the recreation in the woods is a kind of a priority, and talked about making trails in the woods over there. Kurt Billings pointed out that the lower section close to the rail trail is wet, and there's there's springs, the water supply for a few of the houses here is located directly in that spot, and it's really good to stay out of that spot. Which, it's not incompatible with other recreation uses. And there's also discussion about the fact that the excavated area at the far south end of the property is kind of a fun place for wheeled, wheeled sport recreation, mountain bike stuff, and the room seemed very favorably inclined towards that. I can definitely picture, maybe opening up the trail over here and letting people ride their bikes up there and have a bunch of cool features to ride
Maybe
on.
back away with that. That's like behind the.
Yep.
The sand shed there.
Roy leased that land for gravel for the town years ago.
He might have.
Yes, he did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what happened there, whether the gravel ran out or the.
looks like it might have.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a Westover property. If there's nothing else, we can move on to the next item, which is the sign painting project and the elementary school kids.
So about 2 weeks ago, Luke Hart donated a bunch of cedar flitches. I picked them up in my truck from his property, cut them into 12-inch planks, and primed them all with acrylic primer and brought them into the school. So every kid in the school is going to paint their own directional arrow sign. Now these aren't necessarily intended to be permanent features, but they could be. It's just, we're just part of the game, at this point. Who knows how it's going to turn out. There were some parameters about what kind of content the kids could paint, had to be in line with school policies, which is one of the advantages of doing it in the art department. Plus Jane Donahue is super open to community projects, so she's a great resource for that in terms of a bridge between the kids and the woods. And so they're all working through that. They actually spent, while we were preparing the signs, they spent a couple art classes sketching out their designs. And then some of them are, putting the arrow on the sign and then filling in the space. Some of them are doing the whole thing and they're going to draw the arrow back in. I gave them some stencils so that they could be about the same size. And when they're done, which should be sometime, Monday will probably be the last day they work on it, so I'll probably pick on midweek next week. And I'll take pictures of all of them. And we're gonna treat them all with polyurethane, keep the paint on them, put them on posts. And then over the summer, I'm gonna try to reach out through the parents organization to the 6th graders that graduated and see if they will come in and do like a day of group work of putting signs. This is after Sinuosity's work is done, to post the signs throughout the area where all the active trails are, so that we can have the kids following the ribbon cutting to a scavenger hunt for their sign, and then introduce the kids, kind of gamify and introduce the kids to the new forest and the trails. Some of the kids are going to be on their bikes and want to do it, some may not. They just want to remind them it's for everybody. So yeah, that's kind of the plan, is to leave them there for the season, and we'll see what the response is to them. My thought is that we could, remove them after a certain amount of time and do a fresh round of signs in the following year, as like kind of a similar project as we build new areas, and use it as a way to introduce the kids to the new areas of the park. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how graffiti resistant the signs are. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I haven't seen any of them yet. I'm really curious. I know that every kid I've talked to seems to be super excited about it. My son is not even really big on art projects. He came up and he's like, I painted my sign today, Dad. I'm like, oh, you actually did one. All right. Cool. But my daughter is the exact opposite. She's been designing and meticulously painting this thing for days. So I'm curious to see what, I'm sure maybe there's the whole spectrum of other kids' engagement, but it seems to be really positive so far. We've had some good weather days, so they're all hanging outside.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, and I was able to keep the materials under budget. It was under $300. And now that the meeting notes have been approved, I can go get paid back. But yeah, it seems like, there'll be just enough time for the kids to kind of forget that they painted the signs, and then they get to go back and look for them again. Yep. And then by including the sixth graders, it'll hopefully serve as like a reminder that, they can, they're part of this too, and, to kind of reattach them as well. They might miss the actual ribbon cutting fanfare and, the lead up to that. So, yeah, so we'll see how it goes in the long run, but it seems like it's coming together. Jane hasn't written me any emails explaining anything being a disaster or anything. I'm assuming it's gone well.
Nice.
I think the biggest tragedy related to this project was when my daughter said that Miss Donahue washed out her palette that had her custom mixed colors. So that's the worst thing that goes. When I go to purchase posts, they should have a little bit left of the pre-approved budget to buy the posts and a box of screws to put them together. But
Cool.
so that's going to be 2 inches, which big thing for me is finding storage space around the house. That's it. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Next thing is maintenance. With all the work we're doing. So, Dave, this is your section.
Well, we've done some work up on that field beyond the school. We got plannings to do up there. Too muddy yesterday to go up there. So we went up on the fields up off the East Elmore Road, and there's 6 strips up there that we rode till that are they're average about 7 feet wide and 30 feet long, and we seeded those down last night. They need some more seeds. The path that Brooke originally put in up there needs to be mowed. Sheila Halpin said she'd do it, but I really hesitate to lend a mower. So I don't know. I don't know what to do is.
Well, wonder options. Do we use some of the funds we've got to get a decent weed whacker, and with such a thing?
No, they're too much to do with a weed whacker. There's no rocks except for one. You could go in there with a mower and mow it.
So
Right now,
a tractor, a brush hog.
No, you could do it with a mower.
Push mower.
Riding mower. They're too extensive. You're talking 5 feet wide and probably a half mile worth. You know what I'm saying?
It's good. Somebody haul it over on a trailer and
so in 2 weeks from now we'll have the brush hog because it'll be too hot.
What about one of those walk behind?
Gravely's.
No, like the kind of like the DR thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even the kind with the weed whacker on it, but it's got a wider deck.
I don't know.
What do you
Anyway, in 3 weeks I'll go up and brush hog.
Okay.
Okay.
And so we could do, but you're saying if somebody was doing it more frequently than every 3 weeks, the brush hog would be more ideal.
Brush hog, you're talking about every 6 weeks, but half the time the trails, the vegetation's high enough so you don't want to walk it because you're going to get ticks.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Also up there on East Elmore, there's 11 honeysuckles left to get pulled out. I think we should wait till October when we can actually brush hog right along the edge of them and pull them out with the tractor. But that's going to be done.
Could I add to that? I just noticed there's a little patch of honeysuckle right behind this porta potty right out here.
Okay.
It's just like
Sure.
15 feet in, you can see 3 or 4 of them that are in there.
Road that Brooks accessing from East Delaware to get up to his trails.
Mhm.
That hasn't been mowed. And the next road up that accesses up to the White Pine Plantation, that hasn't been mowed. So eventually, we're either gonna have to mow them, shotgun them, or let them go up the project. We either do something, or we're just gonna do nothing, one or the other.
Mhm.
That's something to think about.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So we're thinking eventually a mower and probably a shed to store it in.
Kind of seems like,
And that road that goes up to the field behind the school, it's gonna have to have some water bars. I've been up there twice with a tractor and, you know, a little bit of rain.
from Route 15 or from Route 15 or from East Elmore?
Route 15,
Yeah,
there's no water bars on it. What, they updated a little when they went over and took the contaminated soil out of it. There's no water bars.
and it needs them, otherwise it's gonna get all, yeah. What, okay, who do we gotta get to do water bars? Is it, I keep Brooke around for another day and his mini excavator, is that the best way to do it, you think?
No, I don't think it's big enough to really do it quickly.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That's good.
I think somebody had a mini like a 50, you know? Like something like that would go in and could wipe them right out.
Bigger machine. Better it is sometimes. The bigger the machine, you can do a lot more work with it. But then you get them too big and you make a mess.
Yeah, we'll probably get, for that little bit of work, I don't know how much formality we gotta go through to get somebody to do it. Maybe we get somebody local will do it for, you know, a decent price, Shane Brown or something.
Shane Brown does a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is something we have to put out to bid technically, or for something that size.
Yeah, I don't know.
It feels like probably not, but.
I
I
think-
basically hiring someone to mow the lawn.
Yeah,
Probably gonna have Emily look at it and see what she thinks. Is that something she could do? Or just have Luke look at it?
oh, how complicated do we have to make it? I guess it really depends on how much money we have to spend to do it. You know, if it's a few $100, I hope we don't have to make it that complicated. If it's gonna be a few $1,000s and, you know, we probably need to look into it a little bit more.
Is it possible to do it without an excavator, as in like for instance, I have a BCS, walk behind tractor, and it's got a tiller that shoots things to the side, and you can make a trench with it. Is that not big enough, not extensive enough?
Great for farming, you let the ground and landscaping and all that, but when you get into woods and stuff, you need a little, like I say, a little bigger, but not too big.
So this is interesting to throw out this. Sorry.
No, I was thinking, we may be able to do a couple, but the rest of them are. It's gonna require some work.
How many water bars do you think on that?
I think you're gonna need about 5 to be. To
AMP.
conform with water quality.
Acceptable, AMP acceptable.
Yeah,
Depends, yeah.
yeah.
Sounds like we ought to ask Emily or Luke, or, you know, maybe ask Luke to take a look at it and see what he thinks it needs from an AMP perspective, and see if, you know, it's like, is it $10 or $100 or $1,000 or 10,000? You know, like what order of magnitude are we talking about, and then make a decision.
I don't know if there's enough pine up there get that federal program, do you, Mike? You know, I doubt it, do you?
What? What's
You-
the
you-
program?
Or the state program where
Use
they,
failure? Current use?
yeah, where they, give you some money to the logger to fix up the roads.
Oh.
No, I don't think so, do you?
You think in like all the way up on the hill, or you mean in the plantation? For a harvest, you're talking a harvest, right?
Yeah. See it.
Or there's also
We
rent,
don't know, I haven't seen it.
We just look at it and get some prices.
also renting an
Get a
excavator,
scope of work.
and maybe renting an excavator, finding a volunteer to
Yeah.
run it.
Yeah.
That could make things a little cheaper. You know, my brother.
Most of those good guys are working.
Yeah.
Find them sitting around, they're working.
So, okay. So you got some work done and we gotta figure out some mowing. If we want to have things open. It seems like this year, I don't feel like before we have our grand opening, I'm not too worried about having, keeping things mowed to be available for walking. Maybe in the future we want to do that. I'd like to, I'd like to have ways in which there's income or, some kind of energy coming from the community to help support the stuff. Maybe it is Rick asking for volunteers. I mean, just from my feeling of watching the school budget and knowing the discussions that happened in the town before we bought the town forest, I don't really want to be going to the town and asking for money to be doing maintenance if there's other ways we can spend it. I want to see some tangible benefits to the town coming from the forest before we're asking for the town to be putting out money for it. But I like the idea of renting, having a rental and a volunteer if it's somebody from the committee to do something. We've got a certain amount of money available and paying for a rental as opposed to paying an operator.
Rent a decent sized excavator for about $250 these days.
Gotta have a truck and a trailer to haul it, or
Yeah, there'll be a trucking fee, unless you can get a volunteer for that too. Yeah, I mean, I could talk to Cole, he does all the excavation work I've ever had at my place, he's really good at it, and I could see if he's interested, and he loves to work work with excavators, so there's a lot of one in his hands. It's like that, I can see him for a day and
yeah.
open the town out, yeah, I mean, not out of the question.
Okay. So I guess the action item is that, that maybe a recurring theme. And it's the end of a long work day, and you're capturing these things in the notes. What I would like to do is have an ongoing list of these maintenance items that we're recognizing that we need. I started a spreadsheet that's out on our drive at some point, and Roger, maybe
Resuscitated.
and we can get together and just make sure that all of this stuff is getting captured. It's so let's keep track of it through the summer. We've got activity ongoing. Let's for sure in like an August or September meeting, let's run through our list of all the kind of ongoing maintenance that we that we think we're gonna be needing and figure out if we need to plan for it, you know, just paying for each individual thing as it happens or finding volunteers to do it. It'd be nice to just have you know, the full scope of what we think the ongoing maintenance is. And having, you know, this is year zero, so well, year one maybe. So at the end of this year, we get to a place where we have a better view of it.
It might be, I think it might be worthwhile, for when we do have barbecue. To have a table set up with a list of volunteer related tasks or maintenance tasks that we might need through the year. Because that might be a good time to interface with people who don't normally have time to come to meetings or read meeting
Yeah.
notes. Because I think that, you know, just using that as kind of like a discussion platform, like we're here to try to identify people with equipment that want to help, or with skills that want to help, or time and energy that want to help, or, you know, and, you know, just so there's a wide variety of things that could be done. You know, we want to do short-term, long-term, ongoing. I think that's a good place to maybe rope in a few people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know there's lots of neighbors that appreciate the fact that the town forest is close to them.
Yep.
And they get out and do stuff and, you know, they're not here at the meeting, but I know they're out there.
I think the barbecue was what, August 22nd this year? Or-
Got the exact date wrong.
It's end of August, before Labor
I
Day.
think
Yeah,
so.
it's like the last weekend of August, like last Friday of August.
Anything else that should be covered? Okay, cool.
There is one more thing.
Okay.
It's
Behind the
it's like
school,
the second to last Friday, sorry.
field behind the school, the center portion that it's all great birches.
Mhm.
It is a perfect place to build a maze for the kids.
Oh, neat.
I mean,
Like leaving the birches and.
yeah, just making trails. It's a jungle. So that's gonna be a fall project.
Uh-huh.
But the kids could go up there and have a ball.
Mhm.
Or just mow a maze in there or mowing, like mowing.
I know, there's this chainsaw and taking the stuff that's inside and just tucking it on the sides and making little tiny trails. And it's like a corn maze,
Uh-huh.
but it's in those birches.
Yeah.
It's not a good time to do it because it's full of bugs and aphids and everything unimaginable, but.
How big is that? Is that an acre or so? A couple acres? Can't remember.
Half an acre.
Ah, okay,
But you can't see 10 feet in it.
yeah. We were there, we did that talk last. Forget your experiences. I kind of remember it. Yeah.
We there yet? Yeah.
We're close. And if you need to leave, I think we still have a quorum anyway, so
All right,
you're not,
Jax, you're my,
Yeah, we don't really have any action items.
what's that?
you're
We
my.
don't have any action items.
Yeah. The next thing was forest management and, I don't have any update on it. You know, I've got it. Put my email or the front porch forum post looking for volunteers. There's a few people, I've gotten three different people that volunteer.
I'm certainly interested if I'm on that.
Okay. Yeah, and I see in the notes from last time you were gonna reach out to.
Yeah, I know, I don't know. I should. I caught it when I was rereading the notes this afternoon. I'm like, oh, I didn't actually do that.
Yeah,
So I'll do it tonight.
I'm thinking probably Kelly and Gilly and.
Yeah, anybody that's on the old email list.
Yeah.
that Was on the committee at one point or another. Even up to and including Matt Foster, whoever, you know, just
Yep,
anybody who was on that list, I was just gonna reach out to them. I probably, everybody who's in this committee, I probably won't include on that list, except maybe you, Jordan, just because it's just extra email we already know. that's out there, but, yeah, just to catch the nine or 10 names. Because even if not them, maybe they know someone who will do it, as, you know, people who volunteered in the past, so.
Yeah.
And I remember Kelly and Gilly were really into the mapping last time that was done, so they might be into doing it again.
Yeah.
There's no bad blood in the water or anything.
I mean,
Their schedules, our
Yeah.
expectations are.
yeah, exactly, and that's, you know, yeah. Maybe it is that they really wanted to do this together. I was thinking of the smaller committee that, you know, having two people from one household was kind of weird thing, but then I mentioned that to them and they said, well, then I guess we're both out of here. I don't know if it's connected or not, but anyway.
Everyone has their own needs. That's.
Yeah, exactly. So that takes us to the next item, which is new business, the liability waiver, which we talked about a little bit already, but
Yeah. So.
I do think we need to probably check in with Linda and I'm thinking Linda rather than Belinda, just to have an opinion about it and you know, at least I'd take her lead on whether we loop a lawyer. I think personally, reading the document and knowing the source of the document, I think is probably appropriately comprehensive.
Yeah, it might be a little too comprehensive. That was my fear, is like, this might be too much, it might scare people away.
No, they don't know.
But I just, you know, I just want people to go into it with open eyes, and it's a work site, you know, and trees could be falling, and you want to be sure that you're not standing in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
I do have the forms I'll fill that out. Everybody that's worked with me.
I didn't give any to Gabe, though, I don't think. For his crew.
Right.
So how did people respond to them, Dave?
Pardon me?
How did people respond to that waiver? Were they,
They're not excited about it.
they didn't look at it, they signed it?
Yeah, Bruce Wheeler looked at it pretty close. Yeah.
Bruce, you can count on Bruce to read something.
It's by design, it's a little bit by design, it's like, you know, just, it makes, if you're worried about what the document says, it makes you slow down and just think about, what are we actually asking you to do here?
Yeah.
You know, there is some risk, we're all pretty savvy, but at the same time, you know, all it takes is one bee in your face and then you're not paying attention and, you know, the wrong moment, so.
So,
But yeah, I'll touch base, I'll float it past Linda. I'll email it to her with a caption and let her know, since I reached out to her, like I said before, and she said, well, I reached out to Belinda reached out to Linda didn't talk to me directly about it, but she was the source of that softball liability release. So I'll touch base with her, and if she has any like direct thoughts on it, I'm sure she'll be very quick to respond, she usually is. And then once we get an opinion from the select board of what, you know, at least from Linda, what she thinks we may or may not need in terms of a legal review. Yeah, I just don't really know on the other avenue except to go through the select boards. But I didn't want to incur costs without at least having a clear example of what I had in mind and what I thought we needed.
yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And, you know, it would be really unfortunate for the town to get sued and, you know, somebody to look at it and think that they're technically it's a big pot of money. We don't have deep pockets and we don't want to be there.
So good one, there's support for that, and we'll consider what this is. It's an active document. We've already signed. I've signed one, Dave signed one, a couple other people signed documents. We could circulate it to your crew and just for the same reason. You know, obviously the best protection is looking out for each other. So I don't think that should be a problem, but.
So this was for VIMBA, Vermont Mountain Bike Association, for like a trail building?
It was for a race.
For a race. Okay.
Yeah, it was worded for a race, and it had some trail building language in the original document. And all I did was like take their name out, put our name in.
Yeah,
And, you know, obviously if they refer to the race, I took that out for the most part. There might be some language in there related to, you know, recreational activities. But I tried to strip it down to keep it more focused on just work. You know. Just to have something, you know, I think the thing that, I got a lot of comments about like, bring your own chainsaw, huh? And I got a little bit like nervous, like, oh, maybe we should have a big piece of paper. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, Vimba trail building is probably the perfect model to use.
that's why I was thinking, it was a very similar set of concerns, so.
Yeah.
All right, cool, we'll keep the discussion alive, like I said, in the meantime, I would prefer to have people sign the form, even if it's not perfect, because at least it's something.
I agree.
Forward.
I agree.
And like I said, once again, it makes people slow down to think about like what they're getting into, and that there are risks, and they need to pay attention, you know.
Cool.
That's it. All right.
Anybody got anything else we need to talk about?
I'll just say Brooke did bring up the potential subcommittee for just trail stuff. He was just like, oh, maybe, you know, he brought it up last night. Just kind of randomly, like. He knows we don't really have a subcommittee for just trails, but he was like, hey, you know. Maybe this could could be the seed for that in going forward. At some point here. Yeah.
Maintenance and all.
I had kind of forgotten about that, like just a trail maintenance kind of group.
That'd be awesome to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to set the dominoes up for that right now. And so, you know, just even just getting the list of names of people that are interested and motivated to show up.
Yeah.
Is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, get some trails open. People start coming in and having fun, that maybe gets a little bit more interest. You know, I mean, I know from like Cage Falls volunteer stuff, and listen to Hank Blowiak talk about it. Everybody likes to ride, nobody wants to do trail work, but you know, there's people who like to do it, so I think we can get some. So, yeah.
That's it.
Cool. That's it. That's a meeting. Meeting adjourned.